Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Inlay Terms. I always say we have a special guest, but the guest that we have today is I don't want to say he's special, but he's very knowledgeable, he's very intelligent, and given what's going on in the BC legislature, he's exactly what we need. It's Mr. Domenic Cinelli. Dominic, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Payman. Always a
Did I
pleasure.
did I pronounce your name right? Is it Dominic or Brandon?
Yeah, well, you have in your phone as Brandon, right? But it's Dominic.
Hey man, I'm bad with names. Come on, cut me some slack.
Yeah, no problem, no problem.
Dominic, man, tell us what's going on. Try to make sense of what we're witnessing right now in the BC legislature.
Well, it's been a mess for. It hasn't just been this year and right now. It's been a mess for I don't know, two terms of NDP, two terms of Liberals, two terms of NDP. It's a mess when things seem to go awry, right? Everybody seems to keep on blaming things on the NDP government all the time, but we also have to take a look at what the BC Liberals did in the past, right? A lot of the problems that we have stems back to, BC Liberals. Soji, which is a huge one, was brought in by Mike Bernier from Peace River South, and it was supposed to be for anti-bullying, right? And the thing is I guess it's just you know kids that don't know who they are or adults telling them who they're not and all this other stuff. But that was brought in by BC Liberals. Raw log export under Christy Clark brought in by BC Liberals. We had Casino Gate. We have all these other things. Our lumber industry started going downhill under BC Liberals, right? All that the NDP did was put fuel on the fire. Not to sit there and say that we have a lot of wildfires right now, but there's a lot of issues. Then you had so when we got into this whole thing, coming out of we never came out of the pandemic. We're still living in the pandemic. If people don't think that we're out of the pandemic, you're fooled. They're just toking it with different things right now. It's whatever the narrative that they want you to know, they want you to see. That's where we're sitting right now. And what ends up happening is we're led down these paths, whether it's done with words, whether it's done with actions, whether it's done with bills and laws. Like in legislature, you're seeing all these bills being pushed forward. And there's this one hidden thing that's in all of these bills that we see right now. And it's a thing called DRIPA and UNDRIP. So Declaration Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act and the United Nations Declaration Rights of Indigenous People, right? Now that word indigenous, you know what the meaning of indigenous is there, Payman?
Local to the land or whatever.
Well, born of this land, right? But the thing is, they've changed the meaning of the word. If you actually go in and take a look at the meaning of the word indigenous from back, you know, 20, 30 years ago, and you look at the meaning of the word indigenous now, they've totally changed the meaning of it, right? And, so they're using words like what we're seeing happening right now in BC. We're seeing all of our laws, all of our bills are coming out, have this whole Declaration Rights of Indigenous People wrapped into it, and that's like one of the things that causes the issue is we're all immigrants on this land. Doesn't matter who you are, whether you're an Indian, whether you're Italian, whether you're from the Middle East, we're all on this land. This land was given to us, by the Creator, and what we're supposed to be as stewards of the land, given all the bountifuls of it, right? So when we start labeling people and start labeling this society and this society, it's all a system of control where they want to have people going against other people. People forget that it's governments that are putting a lot of these strains on everyone. It's governments that are changing the rules and changing the laws to whatever suits their needs, but not the needs of the people. Like, when are we ever going to start looking at, the people need to be put first front right away. It's not like when you take a look at elections are always, they're making all these promises, this promise and that promise, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And then when when they get in, they get your vote, you've just all of a sudden backed this. We call them gangs now because that's all politics is now. It's just gangs. Is this gang color versus this gang color? Before it was orange versus red. Now it's orange versus blue with a little bit of green in there. And now we also got, OneBC and you got independent. It's like, it's all gang warfare, unfortunately. And the people that actually hurt the most out of it all are the people of this province, right? Doesn't matter whether you're an immigrant, whether you're an Indian immigrant, whether you're what they classify as Aboriginal Indian, whether you're coming from Europe, all this other stuff. We're all being put in a place where it's making our lives a lot worse and not a happy place to be.
Dominic,
Yeah.
let me jump in. There was a lot in there, so that's the rest of the show. We'll go and unpack what you just said. First things first, Granddaddy-O says, good afternoon, gentlemen. Hello, Granddaddy-O. Thanks for stopping by. If everybody's watching, if you could like, share, subscribe, share the live stream, we'd appreciate it. You touched on UNDRIP. Now, you can go in either one of two ways. Either explain to us what is the danger, the threat of UNDRIP, what exactly is it that people should be worried about, or give us like the Dominic vision for what life should be and why UNDRIP. I think I know what you're trying to say. It's a property rights issue, right?
Well, it's not just property rights, right? Like you have to understand, UNDRIP was back in 2007. Was the first time that Canada denied UNDRIP, right? Which is the United Nations Declaration. So a group in the United Nations, whether it's the Bilderbergs, whether it's the Rockefellers, the Rothschild, the WEF, all these different countries, like the fact that we have United Nations making laws and rules in Canada, right? Like we are, like, why are we under that umbrella, right? You have to look at the connection of the crown to the United Nations. But what they did was they are taking all around the world. They're talking about, Aboriginal rights and Aboriginal titles and who was there first and all of these treaties. And also there's been conflict going on all over the world for years and years, right? And now they're sitting there saying that the original peoples are the ones, like, this is what the whole premise is to try to give the original peoples the control and the power, right? Who's the original peoples? That's the question we need to ask. And who makes the deciding factor who that is? Whatever happened to just living life harmoniously together? Like, this country was not just built because it just all of a sudden grew out of the ground. It took people coming here from different parts of the world to build this country to what it is right now. Building the roads, building the railways, building the buildings, the schools, the shopping plazas, like all the infrastructure that we have here, the factories, the mills, the mines. It was all built by people that came here to build a better world, right? Like maybe, yeah, the Indians were here before the Europeans came, right? But what kind of life was already here? They were living in either in teepees or in longhouses or in huts. They didn't have steel. They didn't have, any industrial stuff, right? So this whole premise that the United Nations is pushing this down, it's to all of a sudden to destabilize everything is what I see it happening. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, all my thoughts are my thoughts. They're no one else's. They're not owned by a party. They're not owned by a brand, right? They're my thoughts. They can't be tied to anyone else but my own brain, right? That's what we have. That's free will. We have free will to speak. We have free will to do what is best for us. And we have to make those decisions, and we make those decisions for our family. So I'm not being directed by anybody to do any of this. This is all my thoughts, right? And people can choose to think that I'm full of it, or they can agree with me, disagree with me. I don't care. I'd rather have that discussion. If there's something I'm saying that people don't agree with or it's wrong, I would rather learn from those mistakes by people bringing it forward. But at the same time, I've done a lot of research. I've looked into this deeply. I've spent a lot of time. Like, I've been awakened since 2001 to
That was going to be my question. Yeah. What happened that woke you up?
What woke me up? It's going to be a very telling day, but 2001 September 11th woke me up. So that's where my awakening happened. And I won't tell you what happened on that day. We all know what September 11th was, right? And then everything just transpired from there. And then you start looking at things. You start looking at patterns. Patterns start changing, and you start seeing. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, right? Because the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth used to be 10 years, and now it's 2 weeks, right? And and if there's something that I'm wrong about, I would really appreciate people telling me that I'm wrong about something, because I don't want to be giving people false information, and I try not to do that. I've been doing that since the beginning. But anyway, so go back to the UNDRIP thing. UNDRIP was Canada turned down UNDRIP in 2007. Just because they didn't agree with it, and it was about doing this whole thing, Aboriginal rights and title, and that the Aboriginals need to have things given back to them, and that's a group in the United Nations doing that. When it comes down to it, 2010, Canada looked at it and said, "Okay, we can see that we need some working to be done in this, but we can see it being a premise." Come 2016, Justin Trudeau, because that was after Justin Trudeau got in, he all of a sudden opened it up and said, okay, we need to maybe start seeing what our laws and everything are like. But they didn't totally implement it into law yet. But they had it as a premise. Circa 2019 now in BC, in the BC legislature, David Eby was the Attorney General, and he brought forward the bill of the Declaration Rights of Indigenous People, right, to the BC legislature. It went through debates and everything. And when it got into talking about Aboriginal title and fee simple property, and I don't know if people know the difference, but fee simple is private property rights over Aboriginal title. What ended up happening is they started having that debate. It was Mike DeYoung of the BC Liberals that started questioning how this is going to work. And Mike Farnsworth rushes in and closes debate on it and forces closure. Forcing closure means shut down debate, go down to a vote, don't go through any more of the clauses that they haven't gone through. It's the same thing they did with like Bill 36 and the Health Practitioners Occupation Act. They forced closure without going through almost 400 different clauses in a bill. By forcing closure, when you have a majority government in the legislature, there's no more debate, and they get to force through and push through what they want to do. So they close debate, and then they put DRIPA in, and DRIPA all of a sudden had the premise of, okay, now this is going to be a founding principle in BC. You jump to 2021 now, and what ended up happening in 2021, we had the Kamloops residential school mass graves realization, and which turned into anomalies after. And anyways, they needed that, which all of a sudden now brought UNDRIP, and Justin Trudeau pushed UNDRIP to go through laws in Canada. And then in BC, under David Eby, still as Attorney General, he brought in the Interpretations Act, and they did one amendment, was Section 8.1, which said that we needed to intertwine UNDRIP and DRIPA into every single law within BC. So when you take a look at things that happened, first Canada was against UNDRIP, then they adopted it. They adopted it under Justin Trudeau. And if you know, Justin Trudeau's dad was Pierre Elliott Trudeau, who also was the one who brought in the Constitution Act of 1982, which under Section 35 of the Constitution Act of 1982, that all of a sudden brought in Aboriginal rights and things that we have to do things. And
You're talking about the Royal Proclamation that resuscitated that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you take a look, there's a pattern, right? What's the common denominator? It's a Trudeau. What's the common denominator? It's all people that are connected to the United Nations. So it's a lot about control. Now we talk about property rights, right? Private property rights. Look at the Cowichan. Like, sorry that I'm jumping around, but there's so much packed in here that everything, you have to tie it all together. The Cowichan decision, or you take a look at what they did with Haida Gwaii, and Haida Gwaii having self-determination and all this other stuff, right? If they have self-determination, why don't they have their own law enforcement? Why don't they have their own government? Why don't they have their own taxes? Like self-determination means we want to be separate from Canada, right? So they've got separation from Canada, but we're still funding it. Why do taxpayers have to fund something that they actually don't have any say or rights on, right? So that's the thing that happens with the HIDA. But when we look at everything, we have to also look at our natural resources, right? Because what this DRIPA does is it gives veto power to the Aboriginals, right? It gives veto power on projects. Things have to go through consultation. This layer of bureaucracy, all of a sudden now we become uninvestable area. Canada is supposed to be unleashing our resources, and that we're a natural resource power in this world, but we're not natural resource power within our own country. We've got all of the oils, we've got all the minerals, we have the natural gases, the LNG, we have all these things, we have forestry, we have water, we have all the things that need to be a self-sufficient country that should be lowering costs for the people. We have everything right here, but our costs keep going up and up and up. Our exports start going up and up and up, right? And like I see that somebody turned around and says these issues go back decades. It goes back further than decades, like massive decades. It goes back to, when we first came here, to be honest, right? The issues are really bad. But
Dominic,
yeah,
uh, I'm going to pick up on one thing you said. I think you said forced closure. So they ram these bills through.
yeah.
Can you explain for like people have this perception that you have this thing called the legislature and you go there and you have rules and people abide by the rules and everybody gets a say. It seems lawless. Like they can just rewrite the rules, they can break the rules, and if no one's paying attention, they get away with it.
Well, that's the one thing that we're actually seeing right now, because in legislature, the NDP has a majority government, right? If you take the Greens, you take the Conservatives, you take OneBC, which is now I guess OneBC and not 2BC, and you take you take the independents. So you got 3 independents, 4 independents probably now. So when you look at the split, if you took the NDP versus everyone else, it was 46 against 46, and that deciding vote is the Speaker of the House. So, and he's an NDP, so he's going to side with the NDP, right? And a lot of times you'll see the Greens siding with the NDP. And so they just keep on ramming through stuff because they know they have the majority government. So they can take everything in terms of every bill that goes through legislature, right? They can put it to a vote and they know that they're going to get the votes on it and it's going to get pushed through and pushed through. So if we think that we have any true democracy, we don't. If you think that, I watch the legislature like a hawk, right? Like I watch everything from question period to motions to second readings to introduction of bills to committee stages in all the houses, because I'm helping out an independent MLA and staying on that, just so I can let him know what's going on. What ends up happening is you start seeing a pattern of what's going on in all these different bills. We saw it in the first session under Bill 7, 14, and 15, giving absolute powers to the cabinet, right? And they can make decisions outside of legislature with those powers. And
This is what I'm talking about, Dominic. Again, you know all of this stuff. The average British Columbian doesn't. There's
yeah,
this perception that you have this thing called the legislature,
yeah,
and they pass laws like the speeding limit is 80 kilometers an hour.
yeah.
But those laws that they pass, they can also govern how they pass those laws.
Oh, absolutely.
It would be like if you're playing a game of football, like the players can't just change the rules of the game, but the legislature
without getting
can.
in trouble. Without getting in trouble.
These guys, they can change their own rules, is what I'm saying, and they can even ignore the rules.
Yeah. Well, if you take a look at the biggest rule that they've actually is ignoring, there's a parliamentary procedure when somebody introduces a bill, right? They get to introduce the bill, and when they introduce a bill, it's not just introducing the name of the bill. They also get 2 minutes to do like a quick explanation what's in the bill that they're proposing. And anybody can propose a bill at any time. Like we saw more bills introduced in this last session, right? Whether it be so they have private members' bills, which they have their set times they have to do it. But during the sessions, if they want to throw a bill forward, it can go forward. And then after it gets read the first time, they do a vote on it. And parliamentary procedures is to vote in favor of the bill to go through to second reading. And second reading is where they get to sit there and do their discussions and their discussions back and forth, not clause by clause, but just the premise of the bill, what it does, and whether they're going to support the bill or not. Because until it gets to go past first reading, nobody knows what's inside that bill. All they know is the name of the bill and the 2-minute explanation of the bill. Like you take a look at Jordan Keeley brought forward a bill that was to repeal DRIPA. It was the Declaration Rights of Indigenous Peoples Repeal Act, right? Because the only way you can stop the bleeding of DRIPA is you have to repeal the act, right? And so he brought that forward. They didn't let it get past first reading. They voted it down. They didn't allow it to even look to see what was inside the bill. They didn't even have that opportunity. So that's not democracy. You're not allowing MLAs to do their job because the NDP doesn't like what the bill was or what they thought it was and what it was going to do to their narrative. They shot it down. Vaughn Palmer, who's a political writer, if anybody knows Vaughn Palmer, he actually wrote an article on how the NDP has used their majority powers to not follow parliamentary procedures, right? Because it's been a parliamentary procedures. In the last 25 years, there's only been 12 times that a bill has never went past first reading, and it was all under the NDP's watch. The first two were BC Liberals brought forward a bill. I can't remember what the two bills were, but they didn't get put past first reading, but that was back in 2017. Then in 2023, when John Rustad was sitting as an independent, or he was actually already the Conservative leader, he put forward the bill to, it was about the protection of women's spaces, women and girls' spaces in sports. They didn't allow that to go past first reading as well. Okay, and then the last 9 happened in this last session when OneBC brought forward something like 6 or 7 bills, and Jordan Keeley brought forward his bill, and they didn't allow it to go past. And unfortunately, they changed their ways in the end. They actually let not Dallas, but Tara Armstrong's bill that she put forward about creating a holiday day for the Freedom Convoy. And that bill went through. It's going to go into second reading, but at second reading, they'll probably just shoot it down anyways.
Dominic,
right?
I somebody mentioned that. They said that Tara Armstrong's bill was allowed to go through, and I was like, why would they do that? To me, the NDP is Satan. And they said it was because it was becoming an optics issue. They said they had to pass something through. Is that true, or is there another
That's
reason?
what I'm just saying. They changed because they got the pressure. They were getting pressured from their media, right? Because Vaughn Palmer writes for political stuff, but he's a left-leaning political writer, right? All these medias seem to always benefit the side of unfortunately, I hate that we call it left-wing, right-wing politics because it's the same bird, right? I call it the uniparty right now, right? That they're like,
Dominic, I'm the same with you. I don't want to use left and right, but I can't,
both right and wrong.
explain to people it's statist, it's not individualist. So I just say left wing.
Well, the thing is we when we talk about left wing, right wing, right? You can't fly unless you have two wings, right? But it's the same bird. So how if we talk about right and wrong instead of left and right? Because there's things that are right and there's things that are wrong. And when things are wrong, when it's not benefiting the people, when it's not benefiting the people, the electorate, the people that they're there to govern, the ones that voted them in to look after their best interests, and their best interests aren't being looked at properly, then that's more or less is wrong, right? And don't get me wrong, you know, the BC Liberals, they did so many things wrong as well, but they want to call themselves right wing politics, which they're not, right? So you know what we classify as right and wrong, it's all what we think ourselves, and it's our like you hear a lot of people talking about when all these parties are emerging. They're talking about, oh, vote splitting and vote splitting. Why are you splitting the votes on the right? Who owns the vote? I own my vote. It's my vote to cast, whichever way I want to cast it. So what makes you say that I'm going to sit there and vote on this so-called right side, or I'm going to vote for this gang to be the thugs to run the people of the country? So you're choosing this gang versus this gang, right? And that's where it comes down to the fact that I'm a big proponent right now. We need to go back to our grassroots, back to when we didn't have party politics, and back to where every MLA was independently representing their riding, their constituents, their people. The only people they needed to answer to were the people of their riding, and their votes should be based on what their riding and their people want them to do. That's why we elected them. We didn't elect them so that they can go be part of this gang, right? We elected them
I
for that.
like what you're saying, Dominic. And I said to you yesterday, I want to believe you that we need to go back to independent.
Yeah.
But just as a joke, I find right now the electorate in Canada, it's like they have battered wife syndrome. So they get their ass kicked by one husband, the NDP, and then
Yeah.
this other husband comes in and he's like, "Vote for me. You don't want any more of this." And then they vote for that new husband and they get beat up again. And the first husband comes back. He's like, "See, this is what happens when you leave me." And they've got people stuck in this like shock situation where they're terrified into voting in certain direction and they never vote their conscience.
Well, I ran, so before I got involved with so I'm letting you know I'm not politically attached to any party, right? I used to be with the Conservative Party of BC, but before I was with the Conservative Party of BC, I ended up running a website, and it was called didnotvote.ca. I wanted to know why people never went out to vote. I wanted to know what they were looking for and what they were wanting to see for them to all of a sudden go out and vote, right? And when I did that, I found out that 10% of the people don't trust politicians, right? That was the first thing. The second thing is they didn't trust that a party was going to stand behind their um, their promises, right? I didn't get my $1,000 grocery check that David Eby promised. Did you get yours?
No.
No. Or how about John Horgan? The election before that was supposed to give us all $100, right? Like, anyways, it's just you can't. And then you take a look at everything that John Rustad promised. All of a sudden, that fell apart too. But that's a whole other story that we can get into. But when it comes down to it, that website that I had, it was to help get people engaged and to find out exactly what they were wanting and what they wanted to see to see whether they want to get involved in politics or not. And right now, all those people, for the first time that went out and voted the last time in the provincial election, they're all now back into their shells. They're going, what a gong show we're seeing right now. Like, look at what's happened with things that are happened with the Conservative Party with John Rustad, right? And then now you've got another BC Liberal leading a Conservative Party. And you take a look at all the other people. It's like it's an absolute gong show right now. You look at seeing what happened with OneBC, and now they can't get their shit together, and now you got internal conflicts there, and there's another internal conflict, and it just keeps on being internal conflict, internal conflict. When do the people get to have a say, right? Like the members that with the Conservative Party of BC, did we get to have a vote right? I got kicked out of the party because I was speaking too much truth in the party, but I was on the board. But regardless, did the people get to have a vote to say whether they wanted to keep John as a leader or not? They did that leadership race, for example, which was like a farce and everything, just like the AGM that they ran was a farce. It was all manipulated by their executive director, Angelo Isidoro and Aisha Etsy. Even Aaron Gunn was involved in that. Connor Gibson, like all these people were a part of the farce of that whole AGM and the destruction of the Conservative Party BC because they stopped being conservative and they started being too big of a tent. The wider the tent, the easier the center is going to crash down on you, right? So they went too wide. You'll never get a liberal and a conservative getting along together for some reason, right? Like one's got strong principles and strong beliefs, and the other one will float left and right. And that's the problem with the liberal versus a conservative, right? A conservative will stand strong. An NDP, same thing. They're going to stand firm on their socialistic ideological beliefs, and you're not going to bend them, right? So, but you got this liberals in the middle. Like, and if you actually see the way my hands are moving, liberals are like a snake. They'll snake back and forth, right? And I don't mind that people hear me saying that because they are. You never know where a liberal stands. A liberal will stand with you on the left or a liberal will stand with you on the right, whatever is better for them, right? But conservatives stand for what's better that they feel that's better for the people and what's fiscally responsible. And they seem to stand, they seem to stand with God too, right? Like I'm going to bring that part of it because we're in a spiritual war right now, right? This spiritual war is happening. It doesn't matter whether it's Christianity, whether it's Muslims, whether it's Catholics, whether it's Protestants, all the different religions in the world. Right now, we're fighting evil, is what it is. And you talked about the one side being evil. Yeah, some of the stuff they do is very evil, right? And we see it. We see it happening every single day. Like, are we supposed to be in this turmoil and like we're supposed to be living happy lives, right? I don't want to be working in politics and talking about this and that. I want to see my daughter grow up and be able to buy a house, have a good lifestyle, not being taxed through the wazoo, not feeling like a slave, right? Because that's what they've done now. They've totally enslaved us. If you think about it, we go to work. We bust our butts when we go to work, whether we do a manual job, whether we do an office job or whatever. And every other week on that Thursday, who's sitting there on our backs taking 40 to 50% of our money? The government. They weren't there to help slaving us and all this. Like when we were being slaved, they weren't there doing the work with us, but they'll come and take their share. Like, why are we having to be taxed so much? Right? Everything we have is being taxed. We're being taken advantage of. Everything that they do, if you take a look, David Eby just all of a sudden announced $150 million, which that's only on the surface. There's billions of dollars, but he's taken $150 million to help with the private property owners in Richmond to guarantee loans. Whose money is that? That's our money. So then what's going to happen is when the banks don't want to do it, all of a sudden the government's going to be holding that mortgage. So now the government's going to be the lender. So now we have to pay back. Like it's crazy. It's crazy what they're doing, right? And if it was never an issue, why does David Eby have to go to that level of saying that, hey, we're going to guarantee those mortgages? If it wasn't supposed to be that way, and if it wasn't going to be something that was going to be overturned, because he keeps on screaming, "Oh yeah, we went and put a stay order, or we're fighting for you, we're taking it to the wall." No, you're pushing us up against the wall. You're pushing us up against the wall with our hands up like we're criminals, right? So it's absolutely disgusting with what's happening, to be honest.
I don't. It's really disturbing for me. What they're doing is they're harming us. They're hurting us. They're causing pain upon us, and we're turning to them and we're asking them for assistance. I don't know. Maybe it's Stockholm syndrome. It's like you're a prostitute in a brothel, and you're turning to your pimp for moral and spiritual guidance. They're the
It's
ones that are causing you suffering.
it's called socialism. Why are people not calling it what it is? It is socialism. Why are we not listening to people that have lived through communism? Why are we not listening to? I talk to people from Poland, right? I was sitting, my barber's Polish, right? So I was sitting there getting my few hairs that I have on my head cut because I pull my hair out all day long. So now I'm bald, right? Because of what's going on. And he came to Canada 35 years ago and he fled communist Poland. He had to hide out. And then he's sitting there cutting my hair and he goes, the people don't realize we're in the early stages of communism, super socialism. We're having to beg for money from the government rather than being able to be lifted up, right? This false sense of hope that governments give us, right? Like these are people that we supposedly elected, right? Like I don't want to go into how manipulation is happening within the electoral system because that's a whole other thing. Because I'm not sure if you've ever had the remanded on talking to you about what he's
Yeah.
doing with the elections integrity and all this other stuff. And people don't realize that things are being done there. But that's a whole other topic. But when we look at it, we don't have true representation. Let's go back to the legislature. We don't have true representation of our voices in legislature. We have an illusion that we have people in legislature that are working for us. Try to get a hold of any of your MLAs to have a discussion or a talk with them and find out if you bring an issue to them, how easily they'll bring it to the legislature. And they'll turn around and says, oh, well, we're not government, so we can't do it. That's bullshit. I call 100% bullshit because if you've got an issue and they really care about their electorate, they're going to listen to what you have to say. They're going to take what you're asking them to do and they'll bring it forward. The problem is we have a problem with party politics. And it's going to get right to the root of what I want to see as a vision. You asked my vision, but we have a problem with party politics. Left wing, right wing, right wing, right wing, right wing, like all this crap. You've got these parties, but when is it that the people's voices get heard? Rather than with your donation money, your volunteer time, and your vote. What happens after that? They all of a sudden cast your anything you want because we're already done the election, so we don't really care. I've seen it happen here with candidates that I supported as a regional director for the Conservative Party, that they don't listen to the people anymore. They don't invite the people that volunteered for them out to any of their events. They're not having discussions. They're using the excuse that you have any idea how busy I am. No, you're never too busy to talk to the people that supported you and helped you. You're never too busy to talk to the electorate that will, again, be the ones who will either choose whether they want you back in or not. They should always be working for the people, right? And the problem is when you're working for a party brand and not working for the people, that's why we have the situation that we're in right now, right?
Dominic,
Yeah,
uh, we skipped ahead to your vision. Before that, I wanted to get to OneBC, and I want to move this along because there's some audience questions and points that I want to put
yeah,
to you.
yeah.
So, can you give your interpretation of what happened with OneBC this week?
Well, this is my opinion. Um, they're a young party. Um, there's more than just the MLAs that are involved in a party. And this is the problem with party politics, right? You've got chief of staff, you've got an executive director, you've got comm staff, you got this staff. There's a lot of moving parts, right? People forget that the people in the background are not the ones that are elected, right? Yes, you're going to sit there and put things forward, but in the end, it's got to be the MLAs that got elected that make the final decision and not the people in the background. This is the problem that every party faces right now. And this is the problem that OneBC faces is there's too many people in the background thinking that they are the elected MLAs. So it's their way or the highway. And That's where it's got to be about the people, right? When they removed Dallas Brody as the leader of OneBC, did they go to the people that signed up with membership and ask them, or is it an internal conflict between Dallas, Tara, Paul, and Tim, and all these other people? And like it's crazy. It's crazy because it's party politics getting in the way again. It should always be about the people, right? So that's what's happened over there. Is they're not going back to who signed up for membership with their party and give them the decision and the choices. Same thing when they're putting candidates forward, any of the parties, when they're putting candidates forward, it should come from the riding associations, the people of each riding, to bring forward the people that they want to elect, not who the party chooses. And then you got to hold your nose and put a check mark beside that name because you want to vote for that gang. You want that gang to be ruling our lives instead of I want to vote for that person that has my interests at heart. The ones that are actually listening to the people of the riding and putting forward what the people want. That's where things are broken. Like it goes all into my vision, right? That was my vision that I gave them when I talked to them when they first left the Conservative Party BC and they were the True Blue Trio. My vision was, hey, let's build riding associations. Let's get the electorate and let them choose what direction that this party's got to go in, rather than a group of people in a back room deciding what the vision's going to be. When do we bring the people's vision forward, right? And that's the problem that OneBC has. That's a problem that the Cons have. That's a problem what the NDP has. That's a problem what the federal Liberals have. They all are not listening to the people of this bloody country. That's the problem here. And we need to be listening to the people. Do you not think that you deserve a say? Right? Like, yes, you're one individual. I'm one individual, but we might have collective ideas. And should our collective ideas not be brought forward and actually be looked at seriously? And it's not just our monies and our vote that they're looking for, but actually our ideas, and things that can change. Like I know when I was working with the Conservative Party of BC, and I was the grassroots guy. I was the regional director for the northern part of BC, but I was also very involved in when we were protesting the government overreach and the mandates and all that other stuff. I had met so many people across this province that my network of people is clear across this whole bloody province. Like I was looking at my phone the other day, and I've got 100,000 contacts in my phone, and I couldn't believe it. I'm looking at it, going, "Holy crap! How did I get all these people in there?" And I guarantee you, I can call any one of them and ask what their opinion is on something. They'll give me their opinion, and I'll know who to bring it to. So when I was doing things with the Conservative Party, I was bringing ideas to John. I says, John, this is what the people in my riding of Prince George are looking at and what they're saying. I went and I met, with a bunch of different people in the forestry industry, and they had an idea on how to fix forestry. And I kept on bringing it forward. It says, hey, when are we going to put out our forestry platform? When are we going to do this? Oh, we got to wait. We don't want somebody to steal our ideas. It's like, doesn't matter if they steal your ideas. At least it's getting done, right? If the NDP steals the ideas and they do what the ideas are, then that's fine. Let's stop polarizing this, that it's us against them or them against us. Like, when do we bring sanity back to that legislature? There is no sanity. When you watch the way that legislature is set up, you've got the government on one side and you got the opposition on the other side, and they're yelling across. And it's like a clown show. It's one clown yelling at another clown. I swear to God, I put the music on. I do the like it's like you go to question period. And the thing is I remember Dallas Brody asked a question, or somebody asked a question, and the NDP says, "I don't know why I'm answering this question." And Dallas Brody screams out, "Because it's question period." Right? If you go to no context on X, it's actually on there, right? Or you've got Jordan Keeley sitting there behind Rob Botterill from the Greens when he's sitting there. You think that he's going to say something very smart and brilliant, and everybody's following him, and then all of a sudden, it's like he was talking about the problems with our drug issue and all this other stuff, but he wanted to expand safe supply, and then Jordan says, "Oh my God, you almost had me," and he slapped his head, right? Like you see this kind of stuff going on. It's because it's like it's a circus, it's theater, and it's not ever what is best for the people, right? And we need to go back to where these, where these MLAs are actually governing for the people, because that's what the people want, right? And that's another problem that I see with these parties is they never turn around and say, hey, I spoke to the people of my riding, or I spoke to the people of British Columbia, and this is what they want to see. This is the vision that they have, or this is the problem they see in their community, and they've asked me to bring this forward. The people asked me. You don't hear that coming out of any of these politicians' mouths. The only one that you heard that coming out of was Jordan Keeley, and he's independent, right? He's actually when you look at how he does things, he looks at things in a way that takes everybody into account. He wants to not see the division of people, because governments want to divide. The more you divide the people into smaller groups, the easier they are to control. And then when you take a look at everything, it's all a system of control. And if people don't believe that, if you think that I'm wearing a tinfoil hat, I don't wear a tinfoil hat. I don't care if the lightning strikes me in the head. At least, I'm saying what I see, right? Like I told you, conspiracy theory. 10 years ago, it was a conspiracy theory. 2 weeks ago, it's the truth, right? So it's like, it's a matter of time. It's a matter of when, not if, right?
So, Dominic, I got two things to add. First, you were asking if I know the Remanded. He's in the audience. He reposted the stream. So thank you, Remanded. And if everybody's watching, go ahead and give the Remanded a follow. Look through his work. He's doing fascinating work on election integrity in British Columbia. And if you can, donate to his cause.
Well, the other thing is make sure that you go there today, because today's the 15th. The 18th is a deadline to put your submissions in, right? Go and look at the work that he's done. He's put in thousands of hours. Like I've spoken to the Remanded, and, trying to work on other things in the background with him and stuff like that. Like all I can do right now is repost his stuff and everything, and give a shout out. But, go and look at his stuff, because the 18th is the deadline to do a submission. And if we don't use our voices and our words to put things forward, that's the same thing with these MLAs, right? If we're not actually holding our MLAs to account and talking to them, it's our voice. If we don't give our voices to what's going on, have it so that we put our things forward, record what you're putting forward, make sure you have something aside. So if they turn around and says, oh, well, we didn't get any submissions, yada, yada, so on and so forth, at least we got the receipts of it saying, hey, we did have the receipts of it. So, it's a really good thing that, go and look at the Remanded stuff. You'll see it on both X and on Facebook as well. And he's spoken on a lot of different shows and stuff like that, because he's doing the work of what he feels that he has to put his time and effort. He got called. His calling was to expose this stuff. And if we don't expose the truth, then we'll never know what the truth is. So
it's pretty horrifying, because election integrity is they say there's many foundations, but it's the starting point. If you capture election integrity and you compromise it, nothing else really matters.
Well, look at the fact that the last election, we thought we did a really good job in getting people out to vote, right? We raised the number from the 2021 election to the 2024 election by 12%. So 12% more people went out and voted in the 2024 election than in the 2021 election. Now, the 2021 election, we were in a pandemic, right? And they threw that out there just to sit there and take advantage of people, to be honest, right? That's my thoughts on it. But when you look at it, we've got still 48% of the people did not go out and vote. Almost half of the population have not gone out to vote. Half the population have chosen not to use their voice. And why is it that that's happening? Is because of all the bullshit that's happening that we see in legislature, all the bullshit that we're seeing in the bills, all the bullshit we see coming out of this politician's mouth or this politician's mouth. The newest thing today, Dave's Deals has put his name forward to run for the Conservative Party of BC. right? If you guys know who Dave's Deal is, that's a save on guy, right? Like, is this what we're looking at? Like, seriously, Christy Clark had her name in there. You had this person, that person. Like, why are we thinking that one person is going to be the hero of the day? Are we looking for a superhero? Because if we're looking for a superhero, go into the bathroom, look in the mirror, and be that superhero to your family, be that superhero to your community, because that's where the superheroes are. Not these other people that, oh, well, they've done this or they've done that. Find that superhero within your own community. That's what we need to be really doing right now. We need to be really looking at the fact that if we want to have proper representation of the people, we need to gather within our communities, have town halls, and have these discussions in the community. And what we need to do is we also need to raise the bar in terms of we should be selecting who we want to put forward as our candidate in the election that's going to have our voice. If you wrap enough people around an individual, like we do with the party, right? You put on your party colors and you put on your party banners and all this other stuff, and now you're promoting the party. When is it that you're going to promote that person? That person that has taken something, they've stepped out of their regular career to put themselves in the line of fire in politics, right? This is the one thing, is that's a sacrifice. Some people take their job as a candidate or an MLA seriously because they want to do the right thing. John Rustad's saying was do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. That was a bullshit line that he was trying to get people to vote on. But when you look at people, like principled people that are actually calling out the shit, that are actually there taking the hits, right? You take a look at Jordan Keeley. He is doing what he believes is the best thing for the riding of Peace River North, which is up in Fort St. John area, if you don't know where that is. But he is, he was happy being a mechanic. He sat on regional district. He actually had a situation when he was sitting on the board of regional district of the largest region in the Peace River district area, and they were doing a native land share agreement through regional district, giving natives the access to private properties without the property owners' knowledge. And he was one of 11 on the board, and it always kept on being 10 votes to 1, 10 votes to 1, 10 votes to 1. It came down to that last day, and they were passing the resolution. He made a couple of phone calls, and then those people called. 1,500 people showed up and shut down that meeting and said, this is not right, because they never went to the people. They never talked to the people. They never brought any of this resolution to the people, just like UNDRIP. They never brought that to the people of Canada. Just like DRIPA, they never brought that to the people of British Columbia, right, to hold a referendum on having something that's going to change every single one of our laws, every single one of our it puts all of our properties in jeopardy. It puts our resources in jeopardy. It puts everything into jeopardy, and it's all based on this race versus this race, or this culture versus this culture. Why are we having culture wars when we're supposed to be all together? Why is it that you got some natives that don't want to be part of Canada, and then the other natives, so they're going, wait a second, we never said we didn't want to be part of Canada. This small group over here that's controlling all the voices here, just like in government, like you have legislature, you got this small group here that's making these decisions because that DRIPA legislation was passed in legislature unanimously versus the BC Liberals, the NDP, and the Greens, when it never came back to the electorate. It never came back to us and saying, hey, we want a choice or we want to say. So we need to go back to where we hold our candidates, our MLAs accountable. And the only way to do that is to actually raise up a independent that will sit there and actually represent the people properly. If they turn around and they say, oh, well, independents can't make a difference, that's bullshit. That's another person in legislature. It's another vote. If you take a look how Jordan Keeley or even Dallas or Tara, how they voted when they were sitting as independents, or even as OneBC, 9 times out of 10, they voted along with the Conservatives because they are conservatives, right? But if there was something that the Conservatives were putting forward that didn't seem conservative, they would vote against it. And the thing is you can't hold that against them. That's saying, oh, well, you got to vote for them because they're the Conservative Party. That's just a name. That's just a brand. It has nothing to do with anything else but that. So
Dominic, before wrapping this up, do you have maybe 10 minutes to go to two audience questions?
yeah.
So the first one is from Gary Haliki, who says, I think that's Kean Bexley, seems to think that Aaron Gunn is running for the BC Conservative leadership. Everything starts to make sense once you realize the globalists need to get BC back on track. Do you want to comment on that?
Ah, he's sitting as an MP right now, right? So like if he's sitting as an MP, why would he give up anything when he's sitting as an MP? You know what I mean? Like you're already sitting in Parliament. Why would you hand over the Liberals a majority government? Because right now you had that crossing of the floor, right? So this is a different type of crossing of the floor than saying, "Oh well, I'm going to go back to BC to be the next premier." Is it self-serving, or are you doing the right thing for the people, right? So that's my whole statement on that.
All right. Another one is from One More Godless Woman. She's more libertarian, natural rights. She's asking, voting for people who do not swear an oath to the people just makes liars by default of their oath. This is the oath to the crown, not the people, out of anyone who may have actually been honest, wanting to make change. I've heard this multiple times. What's your position on this swearing an oath to the crown, not the people?
Well, if you think about it, they all swear an oath to the crown because we're a constitutional monarchy. We're not a constitutional republic, and this is what they're all going to say, right? So the crown is what's sovereign in Canada and nothing else. There is no other sovereignty except for the crown, and the crown's not even here, right? So I think it's wrong. Like you take a look at law enforcement. Law enforcement swear their oath to the crown to uphold the crown, and then their other oath is the oath of secrecy, right? So there you go. Nothing in there ever says that they swear an oath to protect the people of this country or this province. Same thing with legislature. Same thing with take a look at Mark Carney's when he swore his oath. His oath was the king. It wasn't to the people of Canada. It was his oath was sworn to the king, right? So that's the problem. Is we need to have a constitutional republic, a constitution that's written by the people for the people, right? You take a look at our Constitution Act of 1982. You know whose signatures are on that Constitution Act? Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Queen Elizabeth, and Jacques Chrétien as the Attorney General.
Governor.
That's
Oh, Attorney General or Governor General?
our Governor General. I think it was Governor General. Yeah, those are the only three signatures. What there was, so I had a conversation with Brian Peckford about this because he was one of the last signatories, and it was actually really funny that with him he turned around and like I said to him, I says, "Well, you guys don't have your signature on the Charter of Rights or on the Constitution Act." He says, "Yes, we did." I says, "No, no, no. You signed a letter of intent the year before. That's the only thing was that letter of intent, right?" So it's crazy. It's crazy when we look at everything in our politics. If you actually if you dig down deep and you look at all the different acts and the statutes and all this other stuff that we had, it's crazy. So
All right, Dominic, do you have any final words for the audience?
I would say the final words, um, like when we look at the political realm, everything's such a mess right now. We need to look for stability, right? And the only place you're going to find stability is within your own communities, right? We need to gather together in our own communities and find out what is best for our communities and make that decision amongst ourselves, not based on a brand, not based on a party, not based on anything else, but what is best for our community. Let's call it a riding. There's 93 ridings, right? Unfortunately, some of the ridings are bigger than others. So it's not like you can just be, it's not like the lower mainland where you guys all are, where you can actually drive 5 minutes to your next person's house or 15 minutes. We got to drive sometimes 7, 8 hours in our same riding to get to places. You look at Peace River North and Peace River North, Fort St. John, you have to go south 3 hours to Tumbler Ridge, or you have to go north 4.5, 5 hours to Fort Nelson, right? Or you take a look at Bulkley Valley Stikine, which is where Sharon Hartwell is, and she's got to go all the way up to just to the border of Stewart, Alaska from Burns Lake, right? So it's like it's so vast, but we need to be gathering together within our communities. We need to have conversations on what the best path forward is for our community, and whether who we want to have as our candidates in the next election that we're going to have. And we might see a snap election in the new year. So there's all that kind of stuff we have to look at. And at that point there, I'll tell you right now, our best solution right now is to be able to find an independent candidate that stands for our values, that stands for our policies, and that will stand with integrity and be our voice and be accountable to us and not to the parties, right? That will represent us. And if you have a bunch of those people in legislature that are actually representing the people's voices, which we should have, I think we would see a lot different ways of doing it so that the globalists can't control. If you think about it this way, if I was a lobbyist or if I was a globalist, and you've got right now the conservatives have 39 MLAs and the NDP has 47. If I wanted to be able to get a vote, I'll go to the leader of the party. I'll have them agree to whatever I want them to do, and then he'll do a thing called whipping the party. There's a party whip that whips them into line, right? That's why they call it a whip, right? So you either do this or you're out. Look at what happens when somebody defied John by putting a post out. He kicks that person out. Or somebody didn't think that John was a good leader. He kicked that person out, which was Eleanor Sturko. Look at John, how he got kicked out of the BC Liberals because he put a post out about climate change not being an existential threat. And it was just a repost, and he didn't take it down. So he defied his party, and he kicked people out, and he said he'd never do that. But then he lied because he did that to multiple people, or what they did to the people of the province, the members of the Conservative Party of BC, with everything that they did with the AGM. So it's all that kind of stuff. So when you come down to it, it has everything to do with, find that person in your riding, uplift that person in your riding, and then they could be the voice of reason for that riding and represent properly. And that's what I think would be the best solution.
And Dominic, I don't know if you are a public person. Is there a way people can follow you?
Yeah, if you go on X, you can actually go to my middle name, which is Antonio Farisi, right? At Domenic Cinalli, right? If you just go into the search, you just do at Domenic Cinalli, or you go Domenic Cinalli on Facebook, right? And you'll see I'm out there. But, what you need to do is just find instead of just looking at me, look at other people too, right? Look at what other people are doing. There's a lot of people putting stuff out. Look at what some of these independent MLAs are doing. If something resonates with you, stick with what resonates with you. That's the biggest thing, right? Don't sit there and blindly follow because somebody's wearing a blue coat or a red coat or an orange coat. Actually look into what you're doing. This is the problem, is people don't look into everything. They don't look into what's happening. They just blindly follow. The other thing is, if you're going to sit there and watch mainstream media, just watch it to see how they're actually using words against us, because words are powerful, right? I just went into Save On today, and they had a thing. Sorry that I'm running on here, but I went into Save On, and you see that they have free run chicken. When you think of free run chicken, you think that's going to be good food for you, aren't you? Because they get to freely run. All that is they've allowed them out of their cell, out of a cage, to put them into the bigger general population. Like, Google free run chicken, and you'll see that it's just coming out of a cage into a factory, big, huge room. And it's not like they're out in the grass and running around and eating the bugs and all that other stuff, right? So look at the words when they're using words. Like, they're using words like, they've changed the words like indigenous. They've changed the words like a diversity or
Vaccine.
inclusion, equity, like all these different words. I actually did a little op-ed on my social media about words being dangerous, right? And how they're using words like climate change or atmospheric rivers. Did you know that Abbotsford, that the flood you guys have right now in the Lower Mainland in Abbotsford, that's an atmospheric river rather than a blown dike, right? That came from the river from the south.
No, my
Like
favorite one is negative GDP growth.
negative
That one,
GDP. Yeah. Yeah. Or how about, climate change? Well, doesn't the climate change 4 times a year? Don't we have 4 seasons? That's climate change,
yeah,
right?
that one is pro level manipulation of language.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, our climate has been changing all the time, eh? Like we've had climate change always, right? Did we not go through like when was the last time we had an ice age, right? We've had ice ages. How many ice ages have we had, or all this other stuff, right? So there's so many different things. Just be careful with the words and don't get caught in these words, and actually use your critical thinking. Like when you go to my Facebook, my little circle logo says critical thinker, right? That's what we need to raise as critical thinkers, right? That's what we need to do in our schools, raise critical thinkers, because in schools they're teaching the kids what to think, not how to think. And if that's the last thing I do is teach your kids to be critical thinkers.
It's a good point to end on. Dominic, I wanted to thank you very much for volunteering your time and coming here. And I'm sure the audience appreciates what you shared with them.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Take care. Goodbye, everyone.